Well, if they're not just providers of internet, what is the library? And then for that matter, what is the internet? Well, let's start with the library because it's a little not only a little more familiar, but it has something of a history. And there are ways that we can define the library. My favorite way, which I think is still valid, is to go back to S.R. Ranganathan's five laws of library science that I'm just going to quickly spout at you because I'm sure you all know what they are. The first says that books are for use. And here, because of the growth of various other aspects of the publishing industry, we need to take books to mean packages of culture and information, library resources, things that once were only available as books, but now take a variety of shapes. But books are for use. We should make sure that every reader has their book, that every book has its reader. Libraries and librarians should save the time of the reader. And the library is a growing organism. What distinguishes a library, then, is its capacity to put that information that we sometimes say is what libraries are in the business of, into a context. First of all, the library procures the information in a context. And traditionally, that's a book, but like I said, there are a lot of other contexts that libraries buy things in these days. And then, in the context of the whole library, the library collection, the library services, the library presents the information, the cultural element, whatever it is that's contained within that library resource, in the context of the whole, where it will be used, because books are for use, where it will be readily available, because every book has its reader, and in which whoever arrives seeking it will recognize that that's what they're looking for. Now, this is critical. Ranganathan says that the majority of readers do not know their requirements, and their interests take a definite shape only after seeing and handling a well-arranged collection of books. Well, does that sound like Google? The fourth law tells us that we shouldn't overwhelm our readers with a wealth of resources to wade through. We should save the time of the reader, and search engines are getting better and more reliable. And we should learn how to use them for the benefit of saving the time of our readers. And the library itself is well looked after. That's what the last law says, that distinguishes the library from the internet. There is some, I almost said evil genius, just because that's a phrase that rolls off the tongue these days. But there's a genius behind the collection development. There's a genius behind the presentation of the library's collection to the readers. There's a genius behind the advertising of what the library can do for the reader that goes out. Well, the library then is aimed at you, the reader. And that's what we can distill from Ranganathan. Its highest mission is to make itself your context. And the library is an organism. All of those books, all of those resources together, tended in the light of its mission, through its catalog, through its physical arrangement, through its space configuration in the building, through public relations, through everything, is aimed at making sure that the resources and the user make the connection they need to make. On the other hand, the internet is totally untended. That's its genius. This is not a negative thing. That's its glory. But it makes it a whole lot harder to say what it is. And I defy anybody to find 5 laws behind the creation and organization of what's available on the internet that will last for more than a month, or even last for a month. I'll even take that. But it's not a consciously gathered collection, and it's notoriously never weeded. Its active organizing principle is, in fact, not the creation of a context for the benefit of the reader, but it's the collection of data about the readers for sale, for advertising. This is what Jaron Lanier calls creation of the social graph, for sale at some future time to some future magnate. Now, as an ancillary part of that process, we get all sorts of wonderful stuff on the internet. But I think we have to admit that what drives the internet is the hope of being able to describe individual folks, follow them, and use them for business purposes. Again, this is not to say anything negative, but this is where the glory of the internet comes from. It's tended not by people who are looking out for the needs of other people, but by spiders, who are very good at understanding bits and bytes and comparing them, techniques of statistical analysis. And what they wish to find out about is you. And on the way to finding out about you, they want to make sure that you're a satisfied customer, because otherwise they won't be able to get that information about you. Well, so that, again, that's not to say something bad. You know, if I have to make dinner real quick, and all I've got is lentils and rice, I want to be able to put into a search engine lentils and rice and get out a recipe for mujadal. But if I'm planning my dinner, I want the cookbook section of the library so I can sit down, because the history, the culture, and the go-withs all matter. It's a very different situation. So each has its own use, the library and the internet. And so they aren't, you can see why I think they're not the same thing. So the internet's not a library, and the library is not the internet. So why do we need libraries now that there's an internet? It's the wrong question. What are the right questions? Well, first, what can the library do with the internet? And second, what can the library do for the internet? And to put that differently, just to clarify the two of them, because I have noticed that there's a problem in our language these days with prepositions, and sometimes they don't really make enough of a distinction. But what can the library do for the internet means how can the library help the internet be better? What can the library do with the internet is how can the library use the internet to make the library better? And I believe that those are the questions that we're going to have to assiduously be asking as our entire world roils and changes because of the development of connectivity over the next couple of years. Although I suggest that each library is going to have to answer those two questions in terms of its own mission and its own resources and its own raison d'etre, nonetheless, there are some commonalities. There are some things we can talk about.